We welcome everyone. Thank you, Shelby. We welcome everyone from the Criminal Justice Department, every student or maybe not student who is interested in a career in criminal justice. So please feel free to ask questions or interrupt at any time. So my name is Maria Dimitrijevic, and some of you don't know me, I'm a professor in the Criminal Justice Department, college associate professor, and I'm also a coordinator. And I teach online courses and pretty much very interested to see how students and to help students move into the workforce. So that's one of the reasons we're all here today, not only me, but Professor Aida D'Antonio, our department head, Dr. Carlos Posadas, Professor Jim Breckenridge, some of the familiar names. And we are here for you, not just today, but every day, including weekends, what I what I like to say, because some of us are adult learners and we just have some time. So on weekends, we're here for you. Today, our special guest, it's my pleasure to introduce him. It's a Chief Jeremy Story. He's the Chief of the Police of the Las Cruces Department and a proud NMSU alumna, Criminal Justice 2012. Thank you, and thank you for being here today. Thank you for your service and for taking time to share your experience, of course, and advice with our students. And we're very happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'll start with a quick introduction, or?
Sure, you can. Students, I know speaking with them, and we have some of the questions from students, they're very interested in the beginnings of your career. Where did you start? How did you start? What were you doing before you became a chief? So if you can tell us more about that, we appreciate. Thank you.
Try to do it quickly, and I'll just quick shout out. I have Charlie on here, who's an officer with us. I was actually in class with him this morning. He's probably on lunch for class, and he's in the master's program and one of our recruiters as well. So has lots of information. When I was in high school, I'll start with this. When I was in high school, I wanted to be a Marine. That was my whole focus. I dated my wife starting back actually in middle school, and we disagreed on whether I was going to go in the Marine Corps. So we broke up. I went in the Marine Corps and we got back together. I joined the reserves at 17. My parents had to sign for me, and the agreement was I'll enlist, I'll go to college, do the reserves, and then I'll become an officer. So I graduated, did boot camp, all my training, came back and started at NMSU in the spring of 2003 and started going to school. Got married in 2005, and I went to officer candidate school between my junior and senior year right after I got married. And while I was there, I found out I was deploying to Iraq with my reserve unit. My wife was pregnant when I left to Iraq, and my first child, my daughter, was 10 months old when I got back. So all this was happening, and my wife basically said, listen, I don't want to do this forever. When you're done with this enlisted contract, I want you to get out of the Marine Corps. So I had this decision to make. Obviously, I chose my family. But my compromise was, well, if I'm not going to stay in the Marine Corps, then I'm going to be a cop. So that was the compromise. I waited. I continued going to school, and I waited for it to open up for Las Cruces PD. I wanted to stay here. This is where I've been since I was 12. So this is home to me. My wife's born and raised here. All her family was here. And I waited. I got into the academy. I stopped going to school when I went to the academy. And that's something that we'll highlight maybe with the partnership we have now, because I was already a senior when I started the academy in 2007. And I stopped going to school. I did the first few years of my career. And then I went back to school, 6 credits a semester until I finished my degree. And that's why 2012 is when I actually graduated. So it took me, graduated high school in 2002, 2012, it took me a decade to get my degree. So most of you are probably already well ahead of where I was. It doesn't have to be that way. And that partnership we have now is one way you can avoid that and actually kind of do two things, to kill two birds with one stone. The career I've had, I've been so fortunate. This department, obviously I'm biased, but there's a lot of things about LCPD that are unique that I think is the perfect mix. We have a department that's not huge, but we're a big department when you look at across the country, 18,000 different state, local, tribal police departments. Most of those departments are very small, and then you have your departments that are very large. And we're, I guess, what you would call a medium size, 220 officers, which means we're just big enough that we have a ton of opportunity, all the different specialty units and ancillary duties, but we're also small enough where you kind of know everybody. You should never see someone and not know they're a police officer in the same agency with us. You work for Albuquerque or the much larger agencies, there's tons of people you have no idea who they are. You could be sitting next to each other and you wouldn't know that you work for the same agency. Obviously, I started on patrol. Everybody, typically in most departments, starts on patrol after you get off field training. I did about 3.5 years on patrol. I got to go to K-9. I tested, went to K-9. I was a handler for about 3 years. And then I promoted to sergeant. I was a patrol sergeant. I ran our gang unit as a sergeant, which works with FBI. And that's how I knew Ida, working with the FBI Safe Streets Task Force when she was an FBI agent, which was probably the best job. I got to do a little bit of everything, all the cool stuff. I eventually promoted to lieutenant, was over our traffic section, which is, crashes, DWIs, tickets, the three things I hate about being a cop, my three least favorite things. But it was good because I learned a lot of stuff that I purposely kind of avoided because it wasn't my thing. Then I took over training in 2020, in the middle of COVID, and took over our training that's recruiting, hiring, our basic academy, in-service training, advanced training, all of our units. But training's been my passion since early on. So I love training. There's a lot of value. I think that's how we make officers better. That's how we make them safer, communities safer, is through training. And then I promoted to Deputy Chief of Operations for not very long, for about 10 months. And then I became interim chief. And I've been, including interim time, I've been chief for about a little over 2.5 years. So that's all in a little less than 19 years of a career. I've been able to do all those things. Now, on top of that, I've been an instructor in everything. I've been on SWAT from the junior guy all the way to SWAT commander. I ran our honor guard. I've been able to be an armor. So many different opportunities that is just kind of unique because of the way our department is structured. And that's kind of a summary of my career. And here I am now. And it's an honor to do this and talk to you guys and answer questions. There's a lot that I did not know early on. I wish I would have. And there's a lot of assumptions I had that were wrong. So I'm happy to answer any questions that people have.
Thank you. And we have several questions, I would say 10 plus. So Shelby, would you like to read some of them to Chief Story?
Sure. Yes, thank you. And thanks to our students who submitted questions ahead of time. Greatly appreciate it. So we're going to get started with your questions first. One of the main questions, and I think we're going to be touching on this anyway, is kind of tell us what the Las Cruces Police Department, the Academy, and the partnership is like. We can maybe talk about either one first, whichever I think makes more sense. How the partnership works, considering we have our students who are in the program, and then how they can migrate that with their career in law enforcement. So, Maria, would you like to maybe start with that piece, and then we can switch over to Chief Story and how it operates on their side?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank
And
you.
we have a slide also that we can share for the partnership. So Shelby will share the slide. Students in our program, they always, especially my online students, ask me about the careers and what's the next step for them once they graduate. So now we have this wonderful partnership that's there for every student. So in this partnership, students who are enrolled in our program, and I believe most of you who are watching or who are attending there, you can at the same time go and study, you are in our degree, complete courses, and last 15 credits before you graduate, last 15 credits, you can be at Las Cruces Police Academy. And you can graduate while, I'm again saying, while you're getting paid. And here the all details. I know students are also interested in the salary info. So while you're doing your studies, before you graduate, so you're gonna be completing your last 15 credits. So you will have your academic, of course, experience and practical experience in the Las Cruces Police Department. And this is something that Chief Story can share. Anything that you would like to highlight maybe for students?
Yeah, I think this is going back to my experience. I was already a senior when I started the academy, and had this existed, I could have coordinated. And on the NMSU side, you go through your professors and advisors because you sign up for that internship course in order to get your credit. That's completely separate from us. You have to do that through the NMSU side. For us, what you do is you just apply like you normally would. You go through the hiring process, and then you get hired and you start the academy. So nothing changes on our side. You're already an employee of the Las Cruces Police Department when you start the academy. but you're also in this internship class for NMSU to get those 15 credits. So you're being paid, you're an employee, you've already started your career, and then you're finishing your degree at the same time. And for those that are in this program, we offer $25,000 hiring incentive over the first year. Basically, you get paid for a 3-year commitment. And that's for anybody with a bachelor's degree, specifically in criminal justice and a few others. And the exception to having to have that before you start the academy is if you are in this program. So if you graduated at the end of the academy, you will still get the $25,000 as if you already had your degree before you started. And hopefully that makes sense the way I explained it. But this is a good opportunity. I wish I would have had it. It would have saved me a lot of grief doing it the slow way. But I'm glad that we have it now. It's a good opportunity for those who take advantage of it.
It's a wonderful opportunity, and also to be paid while you're in school. I think that's one of the perks that we can say of these partnerships. You can email me. Here is my name, Maria. Of course, if you don't want to apply immediately, we can speak about that. Maybe we can have schedule a meeting with Chief Story, but it's a wonderful opportunity that you need to explore as students.
Can I pipe in with one thing? It's a rare opportunity to be able to finish your degree, and once when you finish the academy, you have your degree and you have a job. I mean, that's pretty rare, because I know that I stayed after I graduated with my criminal justice degree. It took about 6 months before I finally broke into my criminal justice career. So definitely glad that we have this, and it's a great opportunity for students.
So one other question related to the academy that we had a student submit was, what style of training is prioritized during this phase? And I guess that might lead into what the day on the job, might entail.
So I could talk about this for a long time. I'll try to not go on forever.
Okay.
There's state requirements. So our academy, we have a satellite academy. There's the state academy, law enforcement academy in Santa Fe, and then there's these satellite academies throughout the state. Us and the sheriff's department both have a satellite academy in the South. So we have the minimum that we have to do for the state, and then we can do whatever we want to on top of that. The minimum standard, I'm not a fan of. There's a lot of things that the way the curriculum is structured that it definitely needs to be changed. It's actually in the process of being changed for the better. It's very antiquated. So we have to fight with that a little bit because we were required to teach them that. But we add a lot, and we are very, I think, innovative with the structure and how we do the training. Charlie, who's on this call, and I were in a class today called Effective Police Training. This is a company we brought in who I'm, become friends with because they're beating the same drum I've been beating about using what we know about learning. And by learning, I mean actual retention of that knowledge so that 6 months later, a year later, you have it, and then transfer to the real world, because policing is dynamic. It doesn't matter if you know all the knowledge at the end of the academy, you get 100% on the written test, the LEOC, the certification test. If 6 months later, you can't recall it, and even more importantly, if you can't actually apply it when you're on a domestic and you have to be able to apply the law, that's what's important. So we're trying to take all the things we know about how do we actually get people to remember stuff and be able to apply it or transfer it and incorporate it into our training. So there is a lot of classroom, probably more classroom than I would like, but we also do a lot of hands-on training, far more than what's required by the state, and then we incorporate it. So typical day, and it's different throughout the academy, is you usually start with PT, do physical training. You'll have different blocks of training. And a lot of times it's mixed. So you may have some legal training for 2 hours, and then you might talk about domestic violence investigations for a few hours, and then you might do some firearms training. We break our firearms training down throughout the academy in smaller chunks. A lot of dry fire before we go to the range, and then mixed in after the range. And then you might finish with some defensive tactics training. So every day is a lot of different stuff, which I think helps break it up, but it's also good for retention to interleave those concepts together. As you get further in the academy, it becomes more and more hands-on and less classroom, just in general.
Okay, and Chief Story, when you say every day, you say you're thinking Monday, Friday?
Monday through Friday, yes. Yeah,
what time to what time?
So typically it's 5:40, 5:45 for PT in the morning, and the day tends to end between 5 and 6 p.m. So there are long days. Part of that is to get people out into field training a little bit sooner and not extend the academy a few more weeks. But not every day is like that, but there are days that are long.
Thank you.
But they also get overtime because of that. So there's a financial benefit to it.
Okay, that's good. And we have a question from a student. What does it take to be in a SWAT unit, and what are the requirements?
So the way our SWAT team work, we have what we call an ancillary duty SWAT team or a part-time SWAT team. There's only a few full-time teams in the state, Albuquerque and state police, and BC, Bernalillo County might have one as well. But there's pros and cons to that I could talk about. But once you're off probation, you're eligible to test to be what we call an apprentice or probationary member. The testing process typically is a written test. You'll do an oral board interview. There's a physical test, which is an obstacle course that's more practical instead of just, run 3 miles or run a mile. It's all tasks that are kind of required of the job. You have to pass the obstacle course in a certain time. And then there's a shooting test, which makes sure the proficiency is above average. And that gets you on the team. And then you have a year of probation where you're learning. We're doing a lot of mentorship. In order to stay on the team, you have to complete the probationary year and successfully complete a SWAT basic training course, which is a 2 to 3 week course. And we send our guys to either state police or Albuquerque, and they send their guys to ours. So usually you go through 2 SWAT schools within your first year to year and a half, which I think makes you better.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a couple other questions here in the chat too that we can get to. Are there any incorrect assumptions that you see as a commonality for cadets whenever they go through this academy?
I think we all, if you're getting into something you've never been in before, you're going to have incorrect assumptions and biases that are wrong. Trying to think back to some of mine, it's been a little bit. What you think the job is and what it is going to be a little different, and that's important. So I would encourage people, number one, to do a ride along, at least one ride along, if not a couple, because it's just luck of the draw. You might get a day where it's busy and it's like, oh man, this is crazy, and that's a little above average. And you might get a day that's super slow and you're like, oh man, this is boring. So the reality is every day is different, which is one of the huge benefits or advantages of this profession is just the variety. I remember being even a high school kid driving around, seeing cops working on traffic stops and having all kinds of false assumptions. You see 3 officers have a vehicle stop. You're like, well, they got nothing better to do because we don't understand the job. We don't understand why would they have 3 officers on that stop. It's probably not because it's just a typical traffic stop. So we have all these preconceived notions, especially driven by media and social media, and it's really hard to fight that. But as you come into the academy, you start learning. That's how you start to correct those.
Okay. And kind of one more question for you, and I think some of these other questions kind of involve the degree programming for our professors. So are there any unique challenges that officers might face in Las Cruces area in particular?
Particularly, well, we are a very busy jurisdiction. So I've argued that we're in the top 10% of calls for service per officer nationally. And I think I could defend that. It's hard because the way different agencies measure them is different. It's not apples to apples. But we're very busy, which to me is a good thing. You get a lot of experience very quickly. You learn how to we handle every type of call. If you go to state police is a great agency. But typically, most places you're going to do traffic stops, tickets, crashes, and DWIs. That's what you do. You don't go to domestics. You don't go to suspicious persons calls. You don't go to gunshot victims typically. And you're kind of limited and narrow. You have a narrow view of policing when that happens, whereas we deal with anything and everything all the time at a fast pace. That's a little unique. We have a very unique city. We're spread out. We have 77 square miles, but we only have 115, 118,000 people. So that's unique. A lot of cities that are that size, say in California, are 3 square miles, 2 square miles, very condensed. We have a very diverse population with a lot of retirement. We have obviously the NMSU population. We have a university. So we have a lot of different things in one city that's not that big.
Thank you.
And I would just ask, there are questions for students also in the chat, but like applicants coming from other degrees such as engineering or social work, does that help? Is that desirable?
I think
Any
it
comments
is.
about that?
The thing about policing is there are so many different aspects of policing. I mean, it really is a profession that you have to be good enough at a bunch of different things. And if you have experience, whether it's engineering, obviously in social work, sociology, psychology, you're applying those things every single day because you're interacting with human beings. That's an advantage. And that's why we offer incentives no matter what degree you have. I mean, you can have a degree in Spanish, and that would be beneficial in this job here in Las Cruces. You can have a degree in sociology or engineering, and there are ways to apply those skills to this job.
I agree. And that's why we, beside majoring in criminal justice, we offer also minor in forensic science, minor in human rights recently, minor in emergency management soon, and all of that, it helps students on the work. One more question is we have right now in the chat. What advice would you give undergraduates planning to attend law school and pursue federal careers?
Oh, interesting. I don't know if that, I'll give my 2 cents really quickly. I actually considered law school early on in the Marine Corps and taking the JAG path. I kind of was at that branch when I decided not to take my commission. I think there's obviously pre-law programs, but interacting for criminal law, which is the only thing I can speak specifically to, not business law or tax law or any of the other branches of being a lawyer, is try to understand what goes on the ground, because that will be a huge advantage for you as a lawyer. So understand what police officers deal with, understand kind of the dynamics that we face and how we have to apply the law in split seconds, whether it's search and seizure or criminal law, the actual elements of a crime to make an arrest decision. Having that knowledge is very beneficial. And the best way to get that is to actually do the job. So if you're a police officer for a few years and then you become a prosecutor, those are some of the best prosecutors because they understand better than others.
So we have a question. Is there a contact number or a website where students can apply to do a ride-alongs?
Yeah, if you go to CLCPD, so it's like City of Las Cruces Police Department, clcpd.com, that's the easiest way. And there's a lot of information on there, but there is the link to the ride-along program, or you can just run by the station, preferably the one on Boccaccio, but you can go to either one and go into the lobby and just ask them for a ride-along application, and then you just turn it back into them, and then they'll process it, and once it's approved, they'll contact you to schedule it.
That's wonderful. So is joining the Civilian Police Academy competitive?
It has been. This is, I want to say, the 3rd or 4th year in a row that we've been consistent, because after COVID broke everything up. So since COVID, 3rd or 4th year, and I've had to turn people away every single year. We try to prioritize them, but I have a lot of these papers on my desk back here are applications for the Citizens Academy coming up. So it's good to see that interest, but we try to get as many people as we can. But it's competitive in the sense that I have too many people and not enough space. So.
Thank you. So Shelby, can we move to other students' questions?
Yes, thank you. So we have another question from a student submission. Is Las Cruces Police Department a good option to start off small before state police?
That's a good question.
So I'm going to give you an honest opinion. State police is a slower paced in general. So it's actually, well, you're going to start off and it's kind of drowning or taking it with a fire hose, all the information because of the pace. And we have a very good field training program to try to manage that. But the pace is probably going to be faster to start off here versus state police, where you're more focused on your mission. Depending on what district you go to, some districts are different, where they take all kinds of calls, but most of them are more focused to traffic related stuff. So I would argue that it's easier to go state police and then come to us, but that's my opinion.
Okay. And we have another question I can share too, and this might also be something that our professors can weigh in on too. For someone that doesn't have any experience and all they have is their bachelor's degree, is joining the academy still something that would be achievable?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, we're seeing a higher percentage of people coming in with degrees, with bachelor's, even master's degrees, but I mean, there's still a lot of people that don't have any college experience. So we're going to teach you and give you every tool to be successful, regardless if you have a degree or not. I think it actually just adds, it makes you more prepared.
Mommy, 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 mama.
Apologize, some noise in the background. So
Sorry, that was me, but I had something to say on that. And my
Go
son
for it.
on my emergency bypass, so he was calling me. So when I graduated, I did do my undergraduate at UTEP, but I wanted to get into police work, but at the same time I wasn't sure, and so I just applied everywhere that I could, and then the first job that I was able to get into was Dallas Adult Probation, and so that was what I did for the first 3 years, and then in that I was applying already federally, but I didn't have the experience, and so I went to Dallas Fort Worth DPS, and that's where I did 3 years of police and fire work and obtained that experience. And it's like they do in the academies, you get reinforced everything that you learned in your criminal justice degree and more. And then the experience that you obtain while you have that career, it just helped. And so when I finally applied with the FBI, I felt like I already knew a little bit more than maybe others who didn't have that background. So yeah, it definitely helps if you want to go further than the PD, because some people you're very happy at the PD. It's a faster pace of life, and then you get to the feds, and then it slows down. So that's one thing that I can say about that.
And Maria, I'd like to also add too, don't discount any experience people are getting, no matter what job they're working, right? So I worked in a service industry job when I was going through college as well. I worked at the theater, right? You learn how to deal with people, you learn how to talk to people, interact with people, right? You learn how to read people, different things like that, which comes in handy and is a skill that you'll use in criminal justice profession, no matter what you're doing. Everything from the uniform officer to an agent or investigator to a prosecutor or even a defense attorney, right? Judges, all of those things, you can use that interaction with people. And so, don't discount some of the different experience people are getting now. And then also too, like if you go on ride-alongs, they also have on some departments, they have like a explorer program or a public service aid or whatever way you can kind of get some of that experience going. But it doesn't necessarily have to be, in my experience, doesn't have to be like a 1-for-1, right? Everybody has to start somewhere, and so all of that experience builds upon you as a successful person. And I know, for myself, after I got my master's degree, I went the federal route into the United States Secret Service, and they were looking for a lot of different people with a lot of different backgrounds. FBI is very similar. So we had people who were attorneys, we had people who were engineers, we had people who were, history degrees, we had people who were, teachers, criminal justice degrees. So it's you as a person, how you hold yourself, how your level of integrity, how you write, how you talk, and things of that nature that come across that help you to present yourself as a good candidate to be hired across the criminal justice profession.
Yeah, that's a great point. If I could expand on that, because just because you don't have law enforcement experience doesn't mean you don't have relevant experience. I briefly worked at a help desk for an airline. So you're dealing with all the people whose flights have been canceled or something bad happened to them and they're mad. Great experience as a police officer because you're dealing with most of the time people who are mad or something bad's happened to them. Our best, when you get out of the academy, one of the hardest things for people is orientation, getting around places. It's a little bit easier now because you have GPS, but we didn't have that when I started. So you think you know the city, even if you've lived here your whole life, you don't know the city. You know how to go to the places that you always go to. The person in my academy who was phenomenal at it was someone who did pizza delivery for 5 years. He knew everywhere. And that was a lot less stress for him during FTO because orientation we're getting bad scores all the time and he was fine. So every job you have is teaching you skills and just embrace those.
Thank you. That's greatest points. Thank you so much. So I just want to ask, when is the next academy?
So we just started one this week on Sunday, technically. They did their PT test. The next one will probably be in the spring of 27. So I don't have the exact start date. I'm thinking around March of 27. But the applications will start well before that because the process takes time to just get through the hiring process.
That leads us to the next question about the timeline for submitting an application to the first day of the academy.
It depends. It's about 6 months. It's probably the average. and trying to streamline that. But there's certain things that are just hard to condense, like the background investigation. You got to do a thorough background,
Sure.
but it's about 6 months.
Thank you. Shelby, do we have any other questions from students?
I'm looking at our immediate chat too, but let me open back up the other one. Give me just 1 second.
And please feel free to unmute if we miss
Yeah.
some questions or you want to just, chat and we can hear your voice, feel free. We have a question, DASO versus LCPD. I think I missed that one.
Yes.
Well, you obviously know what I'm going to say, or you should. I
Sure.
will say DASO is a good agency too, so I'm not going to knock them. There are agencies that I would not recommend, even in this state, and DASO is not one of those agencies that I would not recommend. I obviously want to get all the qualified people at LCPD, and there's some advantages and disadvantages to working in a county versus municipal, but they have their own academy. They have a good academy. They have a lot of the same opportunities. So we're a little bit bigger, faster pace for sure. We tend to about double their call volume in a year. So you're going to get more experience. You're going to get that experience faster with us in handling different types of things, which is an advantage, but it's preference at some point.
Thank you.
I can share one more question that was submitted, but we definitely want to open it up, and you guys are free to unmute yourselves too if you have questions or additional questions that may not have gotten addressed here in our session, and then we will probably start to wrap up. So one question that was submitted that was really insightful was, I want to work in a role where I can help children and families or be involved in areas where psychology and criminal justice overlap. What advice do you have for someone with my background to make this type of transition? And then what types of jobs could I pursue with both a psychology degree and a master's in criminal justice?
I'm sure there's a lot. Obviously, CYFD is constantly trying to get qualified professionals to work with Children's Youth and Family Department, and that's their primary mission is to help kids in the end. Within the police department, there's our victims assistance unit, which does a lot with victims, both adult, a lot of domestic violence, but also child abuse or domestic violence that impacts the children. If you went the law enforcement route and you ended up in criminal investigations as a detective and you're doing crimes against children cases, you absolutely have the ability to apply those skills to help kids and make a difference. So there's a number of ways, even here locally, where you can do that. The most obvious is CYFD, and that's because they need the help right now. They need good people who are willing to do that job.
Okay, thank you. Looks like we got another question that was sent in our chat. I know the Mesilla Marshals has a crime scene investigations unit, but do they also work with LCPD, or does LCPD have their own?
We do have our own. We have 6 crime scene investigators that are professional certified crime scene investigators. The person who runs kind of Mesilla is Danny Garcia, who I actually don't know how many years. I want to say he's close to 50 years in law enforcement. Hopefully that's not offensive to him. It's a lot. He's been here a long time, and he was LCPD for a long time before he went to Mesilla and has done other things. So we still reach out to him for training. We get new investigators. We've linked them up for him to do some training. So they're a great resource, but we have our own unit that does a lot of stuff.
And is there clerical work available within Las Cruces Police Department, such as redacting information or anything like that?
Yes, and that is a huge thing. IPRA, which is the Inspection of Public Records Act in New Mexico, is a monster. It was created for written documents and not necessarily video. So we went from a deputy chief doing it here and there, doing the redactions and processing these records requests, to about 12 people that do it full time. We're I think about 1,400 requests, and we're not even through the first 2. This is for citywide, but still most of them are ours. We're not even through the first 2 months of the year. So that's a huge thing. It's an important job. It's not an easy job. You're watching video of bad things oftentimes, and so that takes a toll on people, but it's something that we need people to do.
Okay. We'll go with these last 2 questions and then wrap up if there's anything that our professors also want to share, or you yourself, Chief Story, if you want to share too, that we may not have touched on. But we have 2 more questions that we can maybe see if we can address. With the rise in juvenile crime rates in Las Cruces, where do you see biggest gaps in prevention and early intervention? How can community-based nonprofits work more effectively with Las Cruces Police Department to address those gaps?
Yeah, that's another thing I could talk about for a long time. We're seeing when we look at when we look at referrals or arrests for juveniles, we're seeing those go down because we're trying to do a better job of the early intervention or the diversion. So we're trying different things at the front end for minor stuff, but where we're really seeing the struggle is with the serious violent crime, from homicides, drive-bys, aggravated assaults, aggravated batteries, all the really bad stuff with their kids. I think the family is number one. We're having issues with family. Fatherlessness is a big deal in this country, and especially in New Mexico is number two for the rates of kids growing up in single parent households, most of the time with just a mom. And most of these kids we're dealing with are in some type of situation like that. They're not in a relatively stable two-parent household. That's rare. That doesn't mean that's a death sentence for a kid, but that is a struggle that we're seeing. And the police department really can't impact that other than to provide mentorship opportunities with nonprofits are starting to fill this role more and more. I just was in Santa Fe yesterday, and I was talking to a group out of Albuquerque who does a mentorship program. I think we're missing, not that we don't have them, because there are people doing a really good work in Las Cruces. So we just don't have enough of it. And we're not connecting maybe all the right kids that are high risk before they get to the point where we can't, that's not the answer. A mentorship program for a kid who's already killed someone is probably not the answer. We got to start it before. I asked for one of the requests I asked the legislature for this year for what we call grow money, which is for kind of programs and staffing, was to hire a youth prevention and intervention coordinator at the police department so that we can stop working in silos within the police department and with our nonprofits and other government entities. And we have one person saying, hey, we're missing the mark here. We're not even using this program over here. Our youth treatment court is hardly used through district court. We need to do a better job there. So we definitely know that we got a lot of room for improvement. Us, the police department, but the community as a whole, and we need to find ways to start to come together better.
Okay, thank you. And one last question, and like I said, we can see we might have some professors want to weigh into this as well. What do you commonly see in officers that would make them safe and successful, like their skills, their habits, etc.?
So I think the two most important things for a police officer to come in with are character, the most important thing, character, integrity, and emotional intelligence. If you have those two things, we can teach you the rest 99% of the time. We're going to teach you the skills, the knowledge, everything you need to be a successful police officer. It's hard to teach character and it's hard to teach emotional intelligence, although we can train to improve that. So that ability to interact with people, to have self-awareness, control yourself, even under difficult circumstances, it has to be the bread and butter of a police officer. So that's the foundation, and everything else we can build off of that.
Do our professors have any other advice or suggestions too to add to that?
Sure, I'll add just a couple. As you're coming out of college, couple things that play into that as well is your ability to write. So in law enforcement and in criminal, civil, I've done criminal, civil, administrative investigations across the board. And in all of those things, you'd have to have good writing skills. You don't have to be an English major. You don't have to be, perfect or any of that kind of stuff, but you have to have the ability to write to convey what happened or what you did or the actions on scene, because those things will help your case. Or if a case goes to trial, a lot of times the criminal justice system, it's years after something has happened. And so you have to have good written records of what happened and what went on. So challenge yourself, pay attention to your writing in when you're going through college. And then the last thing, as Chief said, having character and emotional intelligence, having the ability to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. You're going to be in law enforcement. A lot of times you're going to be seeing someone or trying to help them on their worst day or something that's happened to them that they really, didn't. It's a hard day for them. It's a worst day for them. So you got to have compassion. It's a service oriented profession because you're helping protect those who can't protect themselves. And don't ever lose sight of the impact your work is having on victims or those folks who are less powerful. So those are some things that, from my perspective, I think are key as you come out and are starting a career.
And I'll pipe in with that too. At the end of my classes, I always tell my students that if they want to be successful, yes, integrity and ethics are the highest that you can have. That just goes in with character. But the other thing is to respect others. I mean, you're going out and talking to people continuously, and you need to know how to talk to them. But you also need to understand that you need to respect them in order for them to talk to you, and you be able to, solve the crime or just get the information that you need. So I highly, stress that in my classes is constantly go out there and just remember to give that respect, and things will go a lot better in your cases and stuff.
Okay.
We have one more question. I don't know if you have time for that.
Sure.
Shall be in the chat. And
Yeah,
then
we can answer that real quick, and then we will go ahead and end our session for today. We will have 3 more of these sessions too coming up, so stay tuned for those announcements coming to your inboxes. Also is going to be on your Canvas announcements too, and probably through your professors here. So the one last question that we have is, what PT do you recommend prior to going to the academy?
So it's a state test and it's standardized, so regardless of age or gender, but it's a mile and a half, 300-meter sprint, push-ups, sit-ups. So those are the things, if you want to get good at those things, do those things. And there's a number of other ways. But one of the things we changed structurally is we don't require you to pass a PT test to actually get into the pre-academy. So you pass everything else, then you start the pre-academy, and we do 6 weeks, really 5 weeks of PT with you, and then you have to pass to actually make it into the regular academy. And we've seen our numbers, like our number of female cadets has drastically increased because it's kind of weighted against them a little bit, the way they do it. But we've had a lot of success because we just help you get there and make sure that you have, the tools and the structure. We do PT with you, not to yell at you or to beat you down, but to actually build you up and get you to that standard before you start the actual academy. And we've been very successful doing that.
Wonderful. Well, that wraps up our session for today. Unless there are any additional comments from our professors or even any of our staff that are here. Anything we want to add?
I just want to add that for the partnership program and the internship, combining the internship with the transition to the academy and to a profession, Maria can definitely assist with that, and so can I. So please don't hesitate to reach out. It is a great opportunity. And if you're getting financial aid, if you're on scholarship, you don't lose that. You keep that. So, you're getting paid, finishing your school, getting your scholarships. It's a great way to end your undergrad. And for those of you who may have, gaps, maybe you're graduating in May and we just heard the next academy won't start till next spring. It's never a bad time to start that master's program. You can put it on pause while you go to the academy and then come back later and finish it. So something to keep in mind.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, well, that concludes our session for today. We will have another session next month, as well as March and April to wrap it up. But if you do have questions in the meantime, we have put our information here in the chat if you want to grab it real quick before we hop off. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording our session for today.